there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to make a card today using this illustrated garden stamp set here, and I got the idea from the last card that I did, which was either 1 or 2 videos ago on my channel, and I wanted to do the version where you kind of do watercolor stamping, but we're going to step it up by stamping over top of that as well. I also want to make this a little bit of a brighter card rather than a vintage feel to it, so we're going to make this kind of bright and cheerful. And to do that, I'm going to start off here. This is not watercolor paper. So this is just £100, the Recollections brand paper that I've been using recently and really enjoying. It has a great price point and it's available at Spotlight here in New Zealand, so I can buy it locally. Then I'm going to get out my finger daubers, and that's how I'm going to colour this stamp. Now, if you have zig markers or water reactive markers, that would work really well too. Now I'm going to come in with kind of 2 sets of colour. So for the brown, I'm using the Vintage Photo, and I'll actually end up using this one next time as well. For the minute, for the green, I'm going to use old paper, and I just use a finger dauber. I dab it in the ink like I would if I was going to do any ink blending, and then I just pop it on the bits of the stamp that I want to be green, which in this case is mainly just the leaves and a couple of little stems. Then I have some shaded lilac, and I'm going to do some of the flowers in shaded lilac, and then I have some worn lipstick, and I'm going to do the other flowers that colour. I could have them all purple or all pink, but I decided to go for a little bit of variation. I'm going to give this a light spraying of water, a couple of squeezes, and then pop it down onto my page, and I really want to give it a minute to soak in. So don't hurry it and kind of pull it up quickly. You want to really give it a minute to sit there, let it soak in, especially since it is not watercolor paper. Now you can see I got a really nice image there. I did think I needed a little more pink. It felt like there was a lot of purple, so I'm going to come back in with the pink dauber here and then add a little bit more ink, add a tiny bit more water, pop it over again, and then that way I definitely got the pink that I was looking for. Now I'm going to leave this to dry. I am not going to move it around or heat dry it. I just want it to dry absolutely naturally. And if I was thinking at the time, I would have left my paper in my stamping platform to dry, but I wasn't thinking, and I carried on with a different card while I was letting this dry. So now I'm having to line this up again, but if you just leave it in your stamping platform, everything will be all in place. So I just had to cross my fingers just a little bit that I had lined it up well. Now obviously when you add water, things get a little bit blurry and a little bit sort of dulled down. I want to add in a little bit more detail with this gorgeous stamp, so I am just adding some Vintage Photo back into the brown stems and things. Then instead of the light purple, I'm going to use Wilted Violet, which is a slightly darker purple, and instead of the old paper colour, which is the light green, I'm using the peeled paint colour. So these will only stamp the detailed parts of it. It's not going to stamp and kind of move around. I'm not going to add any water to this. So it's kind of like we're adding in the detail over top, and it will give those flowers at the top some really nice detail. If I felt like they didn't get quite enough colour, or if the water didn't spread quite as much the first time round, all I'm going to do is come in and actually just use the finger dauber that I used to ink up the stamp, and then I am going to just kind of gently add a little bit of ink to the centre of some of the flowers. Now because we have just added a whole lot more ink to the stamp, you are able to actually do the process again. So take out this image and then add a little bit more water, and you could stamp down another watercolor image as well. So it's kind of like a never-ending process, an enjoyable, fun process at that. So there is my image, and I really like the way that it came out. It's bright and colourful, and it's got all of that detail while still not having too much white with the image. I'm going to cut this down into a little banner shape. Now I didn't have a die for what I wanted, but what I wanted was really simple, so I just got out a T-ruler, and all I'm going to do is find the middle of that panel there. I'm going to go down the very bottom and just make a little pencil mark where I want it, and then when I was kind of thinking about how I would cut this, I realized I needed to extend the pencil mark out. And then I'm just simply marking a nice straight line across the top there. You can see those 2 wee marks and then one line going down the middle, and all I'm going to do is use one of the side marks and line it up with the bottom, and then do the other side, line it up with the bottom, and I have a perfectly centered little banner there. And then I feel like I want to decorate this a little bit to make it nice and a little bit feminine, I guess. This is a stamp set from Alina Crafts, and there are 5 border dies here, and they are really long. So I have die cut them out. The dies actually do separate, but I'm ultra lazy, and I figured if I was going to cut one, I would cut them both at the same time because it makes no difference to me and I can use the others later. So I'm going to snip these in half, and then I have 2 border dies ready for something else. But the ones that I want just here, I actually want to color these because I don't want to have quite so much white on white. I'm using the Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide color, and I'm using that because I don't want to introduce a new color, and I already used this in our floral image, so I'm coming back and using another one. I know that I don't have to go right to the edges. I am going to only be able to see the kind of outside part of this border pattern, and I don't want to make the ink too heavy, so I am going over it kind of lightly. I've popped some double-sided tape there on the back just so I can attach the borders. You could use some liquid glue too, that would work really fine, but it's just nice to have something with an instant grab. I have lined it up so that both borders are going to kind of start at the same place in the top, and then I will cut this off on the angle, and that way I will be able to do the V at the bottom as well. So as I said, I just need to cut this off to make them so that they start in the same place at the top. You don't have to do that, but I just like it so that they match up and they are even. And then I'll cut this one on an angle, and then you can see I have some of the leftovers that are going to fit perfectly, and you can hardly tell that they weren't even meant to be that way. So I just take off some of the release paper from the back and then pop those on. This one worked out really nicely. I just need to cut a little bit and you can hardly see the join. So I'll straighten that bit up and then pop the other bit on, and this one is a little bit longer, so I will just end up cutting this off. But this adds a really nice simple element. It would also look really nice if you had some burlap or some ribbon or some lace or something like that to come out the sides, just to add a little bit more detail to what is a relatively simple card. Speaking of having a simple card, I did want to add something into my background without it being too much. I didn't feel like I wanted to add any of the coloured inks because I felt like that would be a lot for just a background. So I went through my stash and found this Texture Luxe here. Basically, this is just a pearl embossing paste or a texture paste, and this one, I mean, I don't even know if this one is available anymore. If it is, I will link all of the supplies down below. If it's not available, anything else would do. Any other texture paste would look really nice, or if you had something that you were able to put through a stencil that wasn't quite as overwhelming as a coloured ink and yet adds a little bit more. Even some clear glitter paste or something like that would look really nice here, just to add another little element. Now I'm using one of Tim Holtz stencils, and I realise that they are created for tags. However, I still do find it mildly frustrating that they aren't extended enough so card makers can cover a card front. But I chose this stencil for a reason, and that is so that I can carry on the pattern without too much trouble at all. So I can line it back up. I'm going to sit my card out nice and flat just so I don't get anything on the back at all, and then line up some of the squares. You'll notice that I am missing out the middle here because I know that's going to be covered up with my little tag that I created to go on the front. So all I'm worried about is the sides and the bottom, and I just want a really thin layer of this pearl paste. I don't need it to be thick at all. I want it to dry nice and fast, and as I said, I don't want it to take over the image. I just want it to add a little bit more detail. So I have finished up. Make sure when you're using texture paste of any kind that you take it to the sink or you spray it down and make sure that you clean it off because it will set like concrete. So I have finished it here, and you can see this gorgeous little shine. This is about 85% dry, so I'm working with this a little on the dangerous side, but I just have a limited amount of time, as per usual it feels like, so I'm just trying to finish up my card making for today. I'm adding some foam tape on the back. I could have used liquid glue, but I do love that the foam grabs straight away with the double-sided tape, so either of them will work perfectly, and I just cut out that shape by hand. It's just rough enough, no one will end up seeing it. You could always use foam tape or foam squares, or just build up layers of cardstock, whatever works for you or whatever you have available in your stash. I'm going to peel off all of these little pieces of double-sided tape, and then this is going to go right on the front of our card that we have created. Now, I know that the stamps from the stamp set, the illustrated garden stamp set, really lend themselves well to that vintagey kind of feel, but I was proud today to create something that was not along the vintage lines, and it was cheerful and colourful. So I really enjoyed challenging myself and kind of going down that process and finding something that was just a little bit different with that same set of stamps. So I've popped this right in the middle, and now of course I need to get a sentiment sorted, and I have some good news for you guys, because this sentiment and die set that I keep using over and over again, the LDRS sentiment stack, there is the one die set that does maybe about 4, and I think they just released some more stamp sets to it. They all match, which is brilliant, and they are back in stock at scrapbook.com, so hopefully if you check them out they will be in stock this time. I know that they have been struggling to make sure that there is enough stock, so I am going to layer up a couple of pieces of cardstock behind the sentiment, and the sentiment says, "You're the best," and I have someone in mind to give this card to. And this little sentiment is spot on. Now, just to finish this off, I am going to add a couple of little clear glass beads. You could use anything here, Nuvo drops or enamel dots. You could completely leave these off altogether. I'm just attaching these on with a little bit of Ranger's Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside the little glue bottle, and it will have a little cloudy look to it, and then it will dry nice and clear just like those drops. I hope you enjoyed this one today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!